I'm going to talk about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes on design and how I see it as being a key differentiator when companies move in what we call the experience economy. I was, prior to working with SAP, which we will talk more in our fire chat situation here, I was leading the customer experience transformation for a company called Singtel, which you probably all know of because that's one of the largest telcos in this region. And if you think of customer experience, if you want to improve customer experience, design plays an incredible role. It's not only the design of your products, but it's also the design of your services, if you think about it, right? And especially that second part of design, when we talk about design of services, that is what a lot of companies are doing. And I'll explain in this talk why there's so much focus currently in the business world on design. So let me go into it. So if you want to understand what is the experience economy about, I think it's best to put it in a kind of a historical perspective of how the larger economies in the world have developed over hundreds of years, right? When we were, let's say, from the prehistoric age to about 1700, we were really in a economy that was dominated by commodities, right? We were farmers and we hunt, but everybody was really focused about getting commodities in. Now, that changed when we were able to do some what we call mass production in the early part of the 20th century or the later part of the 19th century, where we were able to create steam engines, start to increase the productivity of what people were doing, and suddenly we saw a specialization of companies that were able to create products at a much lower cost than people were able to do as a commodity. And what you saw is that the economic power of companies that used to be in commodities shifted to product companies. Like a company like Ford grew very big on the back of that, right, with their car industry. And then IT came up in the 70s and 80s of the last century. And companies start to realize they can do now different things than products. They can also provide services on top of their products. And if you look at Singapore right now, this is a service-dominated economy, right? I don't know how much percent, but probably 60-70% of the GDP right now in Singapore comes out of services, financial services, telco services. Utilities, and that's become the new economic power. And today, and it started maybe in 1990, but we are now really at a moment in history where economies are getting more and more dominated by companies that are providing experiences. If you think about all the unicorns that come out of Silicon Valley, if you think about what are they doing, what are they selling, they're not selling services anymore. They are selling an experience. You know, if you hail your cab in the street, that is a very different experience than you call that app or that cab through your mobile application, right? And or companies like Airbnb. All of them, they provide experiences. And that's what, if you look from today for the next 20, 30 years, experience economy will be growing and taking away the power of the service economy. If you ask what is next, what comes after experience economy, there are many different thoughts, but there's one scholar or academic stream that will say After the experience economy, we'll probably transition into a transformation economy, where there are companies that are able to transform people and the way they think, so going beyond experiences. We'll see when that happens, right? And maybe that's happening on a very small scale already, but that's where we're heading. Now, let's not worry too much about that, because that may be 2035, 2040, you know. Let's worry about what happens in the experience economy right now. And there are three things that need to come together if you want to survive, if you want to be successful in the experience economy. There's, of course, branding will stay a very important part. This Venn diagram you see here on the left, the branding, will keep on being a very fundamental part for every company. But they have to think about two other dimensions, and that is customer experience, obviously, in the customer experience economy, or in the experience economy, and employee experience. Why is that this one so important? Because when we transition into a new economy, it will rely, although we're going to rely a lot on the AI and robots, etc., we'll also see that the people will make the difference. And study after study show that the millennials, I'm clearly not one of them, that are going to choose future employers, are going to look for companies that are ready to make that transition, that are being digital. So there will be a huge war for talent. At the same time, there will be a war for customers in many industries. And it's all about how can you stage the right experience as a company. It's your branded experience, both for your customers as well as for your employees. That will define the success of companies in the future, which is different. I hope you agree that's very different than how companies are doing it today. Now the issue arises here. There is a bit of, there's what we call an experience gap. Because if you think about the companies you work for, do you really know your audience? Do you really know in which stage you are playing? And if you're a small company, you often know, you intimately may even know all the customers that you're working with. But now imagine you're growing, your company is growing, you start to lose connection with your customers. And you have so many employees that you also cannot empathize with each one of them. And if you think about boardroom decisions in larger corporations, they're often taken in that vacuum of understanding really what customers want. And the danger is that the boardrooms often think they know what the customers want and what the employees want, but if you then ask the customers or employees, they won't agree with it. They say, hey, my leadership, they don't understand, or this brand, they don't really understand what I'm up to. So you can see this kind of disparity where boardrooms think, whoa, we're delivering outstanding experiences, where if you would ask the people that are getting the experience, only 8% of them would agree, okay? And that is a gap that we will need to close. This is just average, right? So there will be companies that are closing that gap where, and technology plays a huge role in that, and that those are obviously the more successful companies than the companies that will not close that gap. Now, if you think about how do companies really be run, right? How do enterprises run their business? It's often being blindfolded. Information, we're sitting on so much information in any given enterprise. We're capturing everything in data lakes, etc. But are we really able to do something? Are we turning that information, that data, into insights? That is a major challenge for all enterprises. And if we're not doing that, we run into the likelihood that we get into a lot of biases when we make important decisions for the future of our company. what I have witnessed, especially when I was leading customer experience transformation in a company like Synctel, there's what we call false cause fallacy. That is decision makers taking a few data points from the data that we present, and then make some connections. You know, they say, hey, in that month, revenue went down, and that was also when we were revamping the store. So the revamp of the store, or the new design or layout of the store is not working. Hold on, I would say then, hold on. How do we know this is a causality, you know? Can there be something else that have caused the revenue to go down, right? Let's maybe look at how many people were in the store, what was the quality of the people in the store, rather than blaming it on the design of the store. Now, I'm just giving you this example, but this is happening every day in the businesses that you're part of as well. We don't have the right information, therefore our brain, we have a reptile brain. Remember, we make very, very quickly, we jump to conclusions, and we try to, we make decisions that may be suboptimal. The availability heuristic is another bias that is very dominant in decision making. It is saying that if let's say one of your directors has just spoken to a customer with a certain complaint, what will that director do when they come into the meeting to talk about the business? They will take that complaint and give it as a proof point that something needs to change, which I'm not saying is not right. But what people sometimes do not realize is that they're talking about the NS1 experience. The real question is how many customers are experiencing that same complaint that you just got? Is it something worthwhile to transform or change the way we run our business for, yes or no? So you have to ask yourself, what is the impact? And the last one I'll call is bandwagon effect. Think about meetings that you had to improve customer experience in your companies or employee experience, and one person very vocal and says, hey, let's go this direction, and everybody follows. You know, it's a very dangerous bias in people, because they think, hey, that's a great idea. They anchor on that idea, and then that idea becomes the only way to go. How about running a different type of interaction between people within your company, and ask everybody to challenge each other and build upon each other's idea, so that you make sure as a team you go into the right direction. Okay, so we talked about the biases that we have when we make decisions. Let me do a little thought experiment with you. You see this guy. This is a person that can run 100 meters. Okay, let's assume this guy can run 100 meters within 10 seconds. Can anybody raise their hand if you can run 100 meters within 10 seconds? Okay, not many here in the room. I'm disappointed. I'm not raising my hand because I can, right? There's only, how many people in the world can run 100 meters within 10 seconds? Maybe there are 10, 12 people? Okay. But anyways, this is a top athlete. The thought experiment here is that I want you to focus on the shoes, okay? Because this top athlete, he wants to, let me give you a little bit of background. This top athlete has to improve the performance. He has to be innovative in a sense, right? To win in that competitive landscape. So he's innovating what he eats, and he's innovating the way he trains, but he's also innovating on what he wears. All those aspects will make him run a few milliseconds faster, hopefully, than his competitor. Now, I want you to be the designer of a shoe like this, all right? So maybe you're working for Puma or Adidas or Nike. Pick your favorite brand. But what would be your when you're designing sports shoes? What would be your the criteria that you work on? Your design criteria. Can you give me some examples? Sorry? The weight, okay. Would it be you wanna make lighter shoes or more heavy shoes, sir? Lighter shoes. Very good. What else? Better traction, okay, so there's no slippage, right, on the surface. Very good, thank you. What else? Comfortable, yeah. So they form around the feet naturally. Thank you. One more. The shape and the aerodynamics of the shoe. Thank you. So those, and there are probably a few more of these. That is what shoe designers think when you are creating a sports shoe. Okay. Now, the thought experiment here. I changed your perspective a little bit because I put this picture on. But think of it, for who are you designing as a shoe designer? Who are you really designing sports shoes? This guy, there are only 5 of these guys in the world. Who are you designing sports shoes for? If you're with Puma or Adidas or Nike? Mainstream. Us, right? Us. Okay. Can I get a show of hands? Who runs here in the audience? Who have run at least one time in the last year? Okay? Most of us, right? Who really loves running here? Okay. So we have, and we did that, not I, an organization, research organization did that same study that I just did with you. Of all runners in the world, only about 10% really likes to run. Why do we run? Because it's healthy, right? It gives us a sense of achievement. But do we really like to run? Not at all. 90% of all the people that wear these shoes, they don't like to run. Hold on. You are a shoe designer. How would your design change now with that new insight that I just gave you in the last 30 seconds? Sorry, that? Make it attractive. How do I make it attractive as a shoe designer for a contingent of customers that doesn't like to run? Colors, maybe. Customizable colors, maybe. Yeah. What else? What are big shoe brands doing nowadays? They are, sorry? Slogans, okay. So they make you connect to a higher purpose, right? When running, okay. Very good, thank you. What else? Branding. Sorry, that? All right, so they add a kind of a coolness to it, or is it, not only for running, but also for leisure, okay? They are?
Coming back to your point on experience, right?
Yeah.
So like kind of making it a bit more intimate, the connection, so like even like connected shoes.
Absolutely. Let's do a virtual high five, boom. No, yeah, exactly. You know, what are these shoes brands doing? They realize this, and they start to connect the user of the running shoe on social media platforms, right? Adidas had Me, I believe, and so that they know you don't like running, but at least if you have run, you have bragging rights to all your friends to run, you know, and that kind of propels you to do it again and not keep it to once a year. So, why did I do this? Because it is always important to have when you are designing something. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because you're all excellent designers, don't get me wrong. I don't have false assumptions here, but that is important to understand who are you designing for. And I'll come back to that. Now, so this guy wanted to be innovative, and we all want to be innovative because that brings us further, that creates a certain a differentiation in the market for our brands. If you would break down innovation into a formula, I'm a engineer, by the way, you can tell from my slide. If you break down innovation, it has 2 components, 2 factors. It's creativity and execution. Okay, let me explain what I mean with it. First, execution, okay? Many companies, many large companies, maybe all large companies are very good at execution. You cannot be a large company without having some capabilities to be good in execution. Execution is taking an idea and scaling it, right? That's what execution does. You take a problem that is given to you and you solve it, which is great. I mean, that's what all companies are looking for in a way. You know, you're looking for the brilliant idea, cap hailing, and then go across the whole world and replicate that same idea, and everybody uses your technology, and you'll be sitting on a pile of gold. The problem is, the issue, my issue with companies that only execute is they get very incremental innovations. They make small steps. They reduce some waste here and there. They do something faster. They incrementally improve the customer experience. What do companies do that really want to disrupt in a market? They're clearly focusing on that first part of the formula, and that is creativity. And that is identifying the problem to solve. You know, there has been no unicorn in Silicon Valley that only started to be in execution, right? You first have to have that killer idea, and killer ideas come from places where you have an insight that not many others have. You have challenged your own thinking on a certain status quo in an industry, and really found that one question that you needed to solve. If you think of Spotify a few years back, they challenged the whole music industry by asking themselves the question, how would customers in the future like to consume music? Sony wasn't on that route. They thought, okay, no. How is clear, right? There are discs, and we create those discs, and we print those discs. We are going to put some labels in the market and get more artists to come to the Sony brand so we can print that on discs. They were not asking that question. Spotify changed everything in the music industry. And see where we are right now and how fast they have conquered the world. So that is creativity, finding the right problem to solve. Once you have that, you add execution to it, you have real innovation. And why is innovation so important? And here I'm going to go to the neuroscience of organizational design, if you want. Who here has ever worked in a startup company? Okay, most of us. Great. Me too. That is extremely excited. So you're probably going to be, every startup starts here. Why are you so excited? Because a startup is built upon a great idea. You have not signed all your time and energy to work for that startup if you did not believe in that one idea. So that's how every company started in the world, okay? Super excited. But what happens then is that once your company grows over time, you get stressed, okay? There's no way around it because once you cannot grow unlimitedly with that one idea. Because you're dealing with people, and people have to talk the same language. And if you're going into other countries, the landscape changed. And what you see in every startup, they will at a certain point get very stressed. Okay. Then there is, and I'm using this framework from the Stanford Business School from a professor called Baba Shiv. He came up with this framework. So don't think I am so smart to build this. But what actually happens is that if you are stressed, if a company is stressed, what happens is your brain will start to make cortisol, okay, to take away the stress. What is cortisol? In a business environment, policies and processes. Companies are trying to reduce stress by introducing process and policy. Meaning, I can control now better what my employees are doing. I can control better how my customers are using my products so that I'm compliant to all kind of regulations, etc. All kind of boring stuff. But what it does, what cortisol does to a company, you get more relaxed, you get more content, right? And you create a environment in which you can start to exploit rather than explore. This is where companies make a huge growth in their markets. Now, the problem with being content is over time, you get bored because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And we have all been there. And what happens if you're bored? You have a very low arousal and a very low valence. You need to have something, right? In that state of being bored, you're gonna get stuck. And we all have friends, not us. We all have friends that are bored in their companies, right? They are in that state for a couple of years. What we really need is dopamine. That is the excitement in our brains that will bring us to new ideas. And for me, design is the core of dopamine for a company. If you're good in design as a company, you can keep on infusing inside your people the dopamine they need to get excited, to build new products and new services and bring them into the market. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about SAP, because I'm not here by coincidence standing in front of you talking about design, because you may not see SAP as a big design company. We have probably never been competing with each other anywhere for customers. But SAP, and we come to that later in the fire chat, I will explain you more why we are so big on design. But we realized that when we move into the experience economy, we need to be able to help our customers very differently. And we introduced design thinking. And actually, the founder of SAP, Mr. Hasso Plattner, is also the founder of the Design Thinking Institute in Stanford back in 2004 with David Kelly, who is one of the founders of design thinking methodology in the world. And SAP, since the last, 15 years, has been a leader in the field of design thinking. And I'm going to share also some of the experience that we had with design thinking going through our transformation, and hopefully that is insightful for you. Why is design thinking? Why did we believe that design thinking is such an important quality for our people when we are advising our companies to go into the experience economy? And because design thinking has one very interesting concept. It makes you think and consider empathy in whatever you do. Okay? So you see this little kid, and the designer of this very simple device obviously has understood what some of its users needed and jumped into that space by just expanding the vessel here. Things that don't start with empathy have a very big likelihood of failure. But it's also when you put empathy at the core of what you're designing, you can also create a lot of business benefits, huge business benefits. And this is an example that I stole from this Doug Dietz, who is with General Electric, and he is creating MRI machines. And you know, the problem that they had when they started is that children, they don't want to go in an MRI machine. It's scary. It's scary like hell. And 80% of the kids that go into their General Electric MRI machine, they need to be sedated before they go in. They make a little change in the design, you know, some paint, some pirates. And suddenly they empathize with the kid. And that number of 80% now is reduced to 10%. I'm telling you this because you probably can relate to this kind of examples and you know that this is possible. But imagine you're a big corporation, you can make that kind of change happening without changing the technology. You know, experience is not about the technology. It's about understanding customers and what they need. And often these solutions are outside of the products or services that you offer. So we use it, SAP uses design thinking when we interact with customers, okay? Let me explain you a bit of the process that we go through when we work with customers. Number one, it often starts with a customer, our customer that expresses a desire for a change. They want to digitize their manufacturing, or they want to run a digital supply chain, or they say, you know, we're operating in 20 different countries, but there's no way we can move people from one country to the other. So can you help us creating one HR platform where on SAP so that we can easily manage our talent? Okay, there are thousands of those kind of examples where we can help our customers with. So we have a desire, okay? What we then do instead of jumping directly into a solution mode, we say not for all opportunities that we have, for a selected number of opportunities that we have, and that's where I come in. All right, hold on, let's have a discussion of what you really want. Let's discover what is it that you're asking for, because sometimes the customer may think the problem is in one area and we can easily solve it with software. We can throw some licenses against it, as we call it, but it may not result always in the right, it may not resolve it, because we don't understand the real problem. What we then do is, as part of that discovery, we can run a design thinking workshop. We say, okay, well, let's bring in your people, all the decision makers, all the people that are affected by the change in a room. We facilitate a session. That people can come up with their ideas and their problems, and we voice out not only what the top management want, but also what the ground level people are experiencing and want to see in the future. And we run that workshop for them. And what we do in that workshop, or as a follow-up, we anchor them on a future situation. We say, okay, we listen to you. This is where you want to go. This is where where we can help you bring in, or where you want to be in 5 years' time from now. And if you allow us to work further with you, we can create a roadmap for you that brings you from where you are right now into that future desired state. Okay, that's how we use design thinking in a sales process right now. And there are not many companies in the world that are doing this. There are a few, but we are definitely one of the front runners when it comes to using design thinking in sales motions. A lot of companies are using design thinking in design of products, design of software. Okay, that's becoming a commonplace. Now, why do customers want to do that with us? Because what they realize when they go through this kind of process with us, and in SP I'm one of the facilitators of these kind of these workshops, is what's interesting when we deal with SP in this way. You give us access to a lot of expertise, because we have in that discovery phase we can bring in all the right content. Experts into the mix and have them interact with the right people at the customer. We come out with a solution that much better fit their needs, rather than they ask something and we put a proposal on the table. And that's important, because our success, we realize that our success is not in selling software. It's about how is that software being used, and what are our customers saying to their friends and family about the solutions that we have brought to the table. So we have an extremely high stake at making sure that the implementation goes right. And the third thing they're saying, hold on, that design thinking session that we did, that whole engagement, was actually the start of our change management. We have used that to kick off change management around the transformation that we're looking at. And I'll just give you some example. When we run those workshops, I'll give you some tools. You know, there's always some kind of persona that we start with. You know, who are your customers and what kind of decisions would they make? What are their needs? What are their motivations? What detracts the people that you interact with, both externally and internally? We'll do something like a customer journey mapping in most of our workshops, so we understand what their customers or employees are going through in a life cycle, what kind of interactions or touch points they have with the company, what kind of problems arise, what are the ideas that we have to improve those touch points, how is the emotional state of the persona in different parts of the customer journey, and we use that really as a framework to build our recommendations. And what we often do is we have the customer role play the future situation. So it's not only them realizing, hey, that's a picture of the future that is desirable for us, but we have them walk through that future by giving them some simple tools with we called it scene cards, where they can build how in the future customers will be interacting with their company and how dashboards would look like. They can just paint that, for example, on these things. And that is not because we can really create, it's not really the exercise. The exercise is a funny one, there's some laughter and people are having fun doing this, but it's also to make them really feel what it will be in the future. And that is important both for us as a vendor, because then it's easier later to reconnect with the people and say, hey, remember, we talked about that future situation, that's going to be our North Star, and we're all going to work against that. Do you agree? It also helps them internally to start speaking the same lingo of what they want.